Now, I used to be a fighter, and I still got hands. They slow, but if you get up on me real slow, I can still knock your neck weight, and I'll knock your short ass out. I'll shoot your curve straight out your head.
I didn't believe Katt Williams when he talked. What's the real story between you guys?
If you sign up for their program, you get a light-skinned, weird-faced wife that never do an interview.
I'm gonna destroy Steve Harvey. And I'm going, wait, we're doing comedy. You know, we're not rappers. This ain't a beef.
Are we actually living in a simulation? Or did Steve Harvey genuinely just lose his absolute mind on a live public stage? You really cannot make this stuff up anymore, because the ultimate Hollywood meltdown just went down, and it has officially sent the entire entertainment industry into a state of absolute chaotic panic. Imagine standing on a stage, looking out at thousands of fans, and completely throwing away your entire 40-year squeaky clean corporate reputation over a single man. That is exactly what just happened, because Steve Harvey allegedly just put his hands on Katt Williams in front of a live crowd, and the internet is currently melting down trying to scrub the footage. Did Steve really think he could silence the one man who literally built his entire career on being uncancelable? What exactly was Steve trying to protect when he allegedly lunged across that stage? The whispers behind the scenes are getting too loud to ignore, and the rumors are pointing to a massive, multi-layered exposure that goes way deeper than a simple comedy beef. Katt did not just take a swipe at Steve's career this time. He allegedly went after the absolute crown jewels of the Harvey empire, dropping names, dates, and highly specific allegations regarding Steve's wife, Marjorie, and his daughter Lori Harvey. We are talking about hidden affairs, high society secrets, and a corporate family brand that is currently hanging on by a single desperate thread. Turn your volume up, lock your doors, and get ready, because we are diving straight into the dark, chaotic truth behind the absolute biggest celebrity brawl of the decade. The absolute chaos that erupted on that stage was not just a random burst of anger, but the explosive climax of a pressure cooker that has been boiling behind the scenes for months. Everyone thought the tension between these two industry giants had settled down after the initial internet storm, but behind closed doors, a completely different war was being waged. Steve Harvey has spent decades building an image as America's favorite family man, a polished suit-wearing mentor who dispenses relationship advice to millions of people worldwide. But that entire multi-million-dollar empire reportedly shattered in a matter of seconds when Katt Williams decided to walk into the building and completely tear down the curtain. The audience thought they were just getting a standard Hollywood event, a gathering of elite figures celebrating their success, but it quickly turned into a historical disaster. Insiders who were sitting in the front rows claimed that the energy in the room shifted the exact moment Katt was spotted near the stage area. There was no security intervention at first because nobody expected a legendary comedian to completely bypass the standard industry protocols just to deliver a message. Katt did not even need a microphone to make his presence felt because his voice carries a type of raw honesty that immediately silences a room full of corporate elites. According to several anonymous staff members working the event, Steve was already visually tense, pacing around the backstage area and looking completely consumed by the ongoing public commentary surrounding his household. When he looked out and saw the very man who has been systematically dismantling his reputation for the past year, something inside the veteran game show host completely snapped. The confrontation escalated so fast that the security detail did not even have time to react or form a perimeter around the stage. Witnesses claim Steve completely abandoned his usual professional demeanor, dropping the smiling, charismatic persona that has earned him corporate contracts for decades. He allegedly marched straight toward the edge of the platform, shouting demands and completely losing control of his emotions in front of high-profile executives and screaming fans. It was a sight that nobody in Hollywood ever expected to witness, because Steve has always been the ultimate master of public relations and crowd control. To see him completely unraveled, shouting at the top of his lungs, and physically reaching out to confront someone proved to the entire world that the truth being exposed was hitting way too close to home. The root of this entire public meltdown goes far deeper than a simple professional rivalry or jealousy over who sells out more comedy arenas. The real issue is that Katt allegedly pulled back the layers on the highly classified operational structure of the Harvey family household, specifically focusing on Marjorie and Lori. For years, the public has been forced to consume a very specific narrative about this family, one that paints them as the absolute blueprint of high society luxury and perfect blended harmony. But the streets and the underground Hollywood networks have been whispering a completely different story for a very long time. Katt merely took those whispers, wrapped them in a brilliant comedic delivery, and broadcasted them to hundreds of millions of people who were already growing suspicious of the perfect image. The allegations that sparked this specific physical altercation involve highly detailed reports of hidden affairs that threatened to completely destroy the family's corporate partnerships. Katt did not just make vague generalizations. He reportedly named specific individuals within the entertainment and sports industries who have allegedly been intimately involved with Marjorie and Lori behind Steve's back. The narrative circulating through the industry suggests that Steve has been fully aware of these dynamics, but was forced to remain silent to protect his lucrative television contracts and endorsement deals. Imagine the absolute humiliation of being a global relationship guru while your own household is allegedly operating under a completely different set of rules that you have no control over. The industry rumors regarding Marjorie's alleged control over Steve have been circulating for years, with former employees frequently hinting that Steve is utterly terrified of his wife. This is a woman who reportedly entered the marriage with a very heavy past, having been previously linked to major underworld figures who ended up serving massive federal prison sentences. When she transitioned into the high-fashion world of Hollywood, she allegedly made it her primary mission to completely erase that history and replace it with a pristine, untouchable reputation. Anyone who threatened that reputation was immediately dealt with, using Steve's massive industry leverage to blackball, silence, or legally intimidate them into complete compliance. But they quickly realized that the standard corporate intimidation tactics do not work on a man who has already survived the absolute worst the industry has to throw at him. Katt Williams has spent his entire career operating completely outside the traditional Hollywood power structure, which makes him the most dangerous adversary the Harveys could ever face. You cannot threaten to cancel a man who has already been blackballed and came back stronger, and you cannot threaten to take away television shows from someone who does not want them. When Katt originally sat down and revealed that Marjorie had allegedly remained completely silent for 20 years because an interview would expose her past, it sent shockwaves through the family's legal team. They immediately went into overdrive, allegedly issuing non-disclosure agreements and contacting media outlets to ensure that no mainstream journalists began digging into the federal archives. But the internet does not forget, and the sudden public interest in Marjorie's past husbands completely compromised the family's media defense strategy. The situation became exponentially more complicated when the spotlight naturally shifted from Marjorie down to her daughter, Lori Harvey, who has become a major figure in pop culture. Lori has been celebrated by the media as the ultimate independent woman, moving through high-profile relationships with rappers, actors, and billionaire heirs with complete ease. But according to the narrative being pushed by independent investigators, that entire dating timeline was not just a series of casual romances, but a highly calculated corporate strategy. The rumor mill suggests that these relationships were heavily managed behind the scenes to keep the Harvey name trending across every major social media platform. However, the darker side of these reports suggests that the boundaries of these relationships were completely blurred, leading to overlapping affairs that finally caught up with the family. The specific breaking news that allegedly drove Steve over the edge involves a leaked dossier that has been making the rounds among top-tier entertainment lawyers and tabloid executives. This document reportedly contains highly sensitive communication logs, travel itineraries, and photographic evidence linking both Marjorie and Lori to concurrent affairs with high-profile individuals. Some of these individuals are allegedly close personal friends and business associates of Steve himself, making the betrayal hit on a deeply personal level. For a man who prides himself on being the ultimate patriarch, discovering that his own family members were allegedly conducting these operations right under his nose is the ultimate professional and personal nightmare. When Katt allegedly brought these specific details to light during a private industry gathering right before the stage incident, it was the absolute final straw for Steve. He could handle the jokes about his clothes, he could handle the jokes about his daytime television shows, and he could handle being called a sellout by his peers. But when a rival comedian stands in a room full of your peers and starts detailing the alleged infidelity running rampant through your household, the corporate facade completely drops. Steve's sudden physical reaction on that stage was the reaction of a man who realized that his back was completely against the wall, and his secrets were no longer safe. The crowd's reaction was a mix of absolute horror and intense excitement, because they knew they were witnessing the literal unraveling of a Hollywood dynasty in real time. The immediate aftermath of the stage attack saw an unprecedented scramble by the venue's management and Steve's personal public relations team to confiscate all recording devices. Cell phones were reportedly grabbed from audience members, and threats of massive lawsuits were thrown around the room to ensure that the raw footage never made it to the major networks. But in the modern digital era, trying to suppress a viral moment involving two of the biggest names in comedy is an absolute exercise in futility. Small clips and audio snippets immediately began leaking onto underground blogs and encrypted messaging channels, confirming that a physical altercation had indeed taken place. The desperation to hide the truth only served to prove to the general public that whatever Katt had said on that stage was 100% accurate. The mainstream media has been put on absolute lockdown regarding this story, with major networks completely avoiding any direct commentary on the physical nature of the fight. Instead, they are trying to frame it as a simple verbal disagreement that was overblown by internet bloggers who are looking for clicks and engagement. But the independent investigative community is not buying the corporate narrative because the evidence of a massive cover-up is simply too overwhelming to ignore. When you see a global media icon suddenly canceling scheduled appearances and locking down social media comment sections, it tells you everything you need to know. The panic within the Harvey camp is palpable, and they are reportedly holding emergency meetings with their top financial advisors to assess the damage to their brand. The real tragedy for Steve is that he has spent the last 2 decades telling the world exactly how to run their lives, while his own house was allegedly built on a foundation of secrets. His books, his seminars, and his daily radio broadcasts have all been centered on the concept of accountability, honor, and building a solid family structure. To have all of that exposed as a beautifully designed corporate illusion by a man who refuses to play by the Hollywood rules is the ultimate form of poetic justice. The public is starting to look back at old interviews, analyzing the body language, and realizing that the signs of trouble have been there all along. Steve's aggressive outburst on that stage was not an act of strength, but a final desperate act of weakness from a man who knows his time at the top is rapidly coming to an end. The narrative is shifting away from the comedy stage and moving straight into the legal and financial realm, where the true consequences of this scandal will be felt. Major corporate sponsors who have tied their brands to Steve's wholesome family image are reportedly looking for exit clauses in their multi-million-dollar contracts. They cannot afford to be associated with a public figure who loses his temper and attacks a colleague on stage, especially when the underlying reason involves deep-seated personal scandals. The financial fallout from this single event could easily wipe out a massive portion of the wealth Steve has accumulated over his entire career. And as the financial pressure mounts, the internal tension within the Harvey household is reaching an absolute breaking point, setting the stage for a massive legal showdown that will change everything. The financial panic rippling through the Harvey empire is only the beginning of this massive corporate collapse, as the behind-the-scenes legal teams are currently working 24 hours a day to contain the spreading damage. Major television networks and global lifestyle brands that have funded Steve's lavish lifestyle for decades are reportedly issuing immediate compliance audits to review the stability of their investments. When a corporate icon publicly unravels on a live stage, it triggers a chain reaction in boardrooms across New York and Los Angeles, where executives only care about protecting their profit margins. The wholesome, wise patriarch who built a multi-million-dollar industry out of telling people how to think like a man and act like a lady has suddenly become the biggest liability in daytime entertainment. Independent media outlets are currently uncovering a massive paper trail of emergency, non-disclosure agreements that were allegedly rushed to venue staff members within minutes of the physical altercation. Anonymous security personnel have hinted that the Harvey legal machine offered massive financial settlements on the spot to ensure that any high-definition smartphone recordings of the attack were permanently wiped from existence. This level of immediate corporate desperation shows that the family is not just afraid of the public seeing a fight. They are absolutely terrified of the specific words Katt Williams was shouting while the chaos was unfolding. Katt was not just throwing insults. He was allegedly reciting specific dates, times, and financial transactions that link the Harvey household to a series of highly questionable elite circles. The investigative findings circulating through underground Hollywood networks suggest that Marjorie Harvey has been operating a highly sophisticated shadow operation designed to control every single piece of media that mentions her name. For years, any independent blogger or journalist who attempted to investigate her past marriages to major underworld figures was immediately met with aggressive cease and desist letters and threats of total financial ruin. But when Katt brought those exact names into the mainstream spotlight on the most viral podcast in history, he completely broke the spell of intimidation that Marjorie had used to protect her high-fashion persona. The public is now digging through ancient federal court archives, realizing that the perfect, pristine fashion icon they see sitting front row at European runway shows was once deeply embedded in a completely different kind of lifestyle. The leaked reports currently making the rounds among top-tier celebrity lawyers indicate that the tension within the marriage reached an absolute boiling point long before the stage incident took place. According to these anonymous sources, Steve has been forced to finance an incredibly extravagant lifestyle for Marjorie and her children just to keep the peace and maintain the illusion of a happy home. We are talking about millions of dollars spent on private jets, rare designer wardrobe collections, and massive real estate portfolios that seem to serve no other purpose than displaying extreme wealth on social media. But behind that golden curtain, the marriage was allegedly functioning as a strict business arrangement where Steve provided the funding and Marjorie provided the elite social status, a dynamic that completely shattered the moment Katt exposed the arrangement. The breakdown of this scandal is now focusing heavily on Harvey, whose high-profile dating life has been a staple of pop culture headlines for the last several years. While the mainstream media always portrayed her as an independent style icon who simply chooses to move on when a relationship ends, independent investigators are painting a much darker picture. The running narrative suggests that these relationships with top-tier athletes, actors, and music moguls were heavily coordinated promotional campaigns designed to keep the entire Harvey family relevant in a rapidly changing digital landscape. But when you play a high-stakes game with Hollywood's most powerful elites, overlapping secrets are bound to surface, and Katt allegedly exposed the exact moment where those managed relationships crossed the line into absolute personal chaos. According to an imaginary statement leaked from a supposed close associate of the family, Steve was allegedly warned by his closest industry friends that allowing his household to operate this way would eventually lead to his complete destruction. The source reportedly stated that Steve was completely blinded by his devotion to Marjorie, allowing her to systematically alienate his biological children from his previous marriages while prioritizing her own offspring. This internal family divide has been a quiet talking point in urban entertainment circles for years, with many noting how Steve's older children completely vanished from the family's public branding campaigns. Katt's public commentary did not just touch on the rumors of affairs, it directly exposed the deep, painful fractured lines within the family structure itself. Public reactions across every major social media platform have been a mix of absolute validation and deep disappointment from longtime fans of the veteran comedian. Millions of viewers who grew up watching Steve give motivational speeches and relationship advice feel completely betrayed by the revelation that his own home was allegedly a hub of deception and corporate management. The comment sections of every major entertainment blog are flooded with people pointing out the extreme hypocrisy of a man who wrote global bestsellers on commitment, while his own wife was allegedly steering the relationship from behind a curtain of secrets. The narrative has completely shifted from a simple comedy beef into a cultural conversation about the absolute fake nature of mainstream Hollywood imagery. Tabloid networks like TMZ and high-profile legal commentary channels are preparing for a massive wave of public disclosures, as several former employees of the Harvey household are reportedly looking to break their silence. These individuals, who previously signed strict confidentiality agreements, are now consulting with top-tier defense attorneys to see if those contracts are still valid, given the public nature of the stage assault. If these non-disclosure agreements are successfully challenged in court, it will open the floodgates for a terrifying amount of personal and financial data to enter the public domain. We are talking about daily household logs, private communication records, and detailed accounts of how Steve and Marjorie allegedly treated the people who worked beneath them. The legendary story of Shirley Strawberry's leaked phone conversation from a few years ago has suddenly re-emerged as a critical piece of evidence in this ongoing public investigation. In that leaked audio, the longtime radio co-host explicitly stated that Steve was completely terrified of his wife, and that Marjorie viewed the radio staff as nothing more than the help. At the time, the Harvey PR machine managed to smooth the incident over, forcing apologies and moving past the drama, as if it were a simple misunderstanding. But in the wake of the recent stage meltdown, the public is realizing that Shirley was telling the absolute, unvarnished truth about the toxic power dynamic ruling the Harvey mansion. The strategic moves being made by Marjorie behind the scenes are now being described as a state of total frantic damage control. Insiders claim she is currently demanding that Steve use every single ounce of his remaining Hollywood leverage to completely blackball Katt Williams from every major comedy venue and network contract in the country. She reportedly told him that if Katt is allowed to continue speaking freely, their entire corporate legacy will be completely wiped out by the end of the year. This has led to reports of Steve making desperate phone calls to powerful network executives, giving them an absolute ultimatum. Either they stop working with Katt Williams, or Steve walks away from his top-rated television projects. But the ultimate flaw in this corporate blackballing strategy is that the industry power structure has drastically changed over the last 5 years. Network executives no longer hold the absolute power to destroy a comedian's career, especially when that comedian possesses a direct, unfiltered connection to hundreds of millions of fans through independent digital platforms. Katt Williams does not need a daytime television slot or a corporate sponsor's approval to sell out an arena or generate hundreds of millions of views. By trying to force the industry to choose between his corporate brand and Katt's raw honesty, Steve is slowly realizing that his traditional Hollywood leverage is completely useless against an opponent who does not fear the system. The financial crisis looming over the Harvey Foundation and their various joint business ventures is causing massive panic among their corporate investors. Major brands do not want their logos attached to a family that is currently being investigated by independent media for historical ties to underworld operations and ongoing domestic chaos. Several high-profile charity events and business conventions that were scheduled to feature Steve as the keynote speaker have quietly started looking for replacement hosts to avoid any potential public boycotts. The lucrative corporate empire that took 4 decades of hard labor to build is effectively being dismantled by the truth in a matter of months. As the public pressure continues to mount, rumors are starting to surface regarding a potential legal separation within the Harvey household as a desperate attempt to protect their remaining individual assets. Entertainment lawyers are pointing out that if the corporate brand completely collapses, the financial liabilities could force the couple into a massive legal battle over who owns the rights to their remaining businesses. This would be the ultimate ironic conclusion to a relationship that was marketed to the world as the absolute gold standard of modern romance and blended family success. The facade is completely gone, and the cold corporate reality underneath is finally being exposed for the entire world to witness. The level of public intrigue has reached such a fever pitch that major investigative networks are reportedly preparing full-length documentary features exploring the hidden history of Marjorie's rise to high society. These investigative pieces are set to feature interviews with former associates from her past life, legal analysts who have studied her previous husband's federal cases, and entertainment insiders who witnessed the early days of her relationship with Steve. This is the exact nightmare scenario that the Harvey family spent millions of dollars trying to prevent, and their sudden aggressive actions on that stage have only served to accelerate their own public downfall. The transition from this point of intense public scrutiny is leading directly into the final phase of this entertainment warfare, where the legal system and corporate sponsors will make their final determinations. The traditional media can no longer protect the family from the overwhelming wave of public curiosity and independent evidence that is surfacing every single hour. Steve Harvey's public legacy is no longer defined by his classic stand-up specials or his record-breaking game show runs. It is now completely tied to a desperate, violent outburst against a man who simply refused to keep his secrets hidden. The absolute destruction of the Harvey family's corporate credibility has reached the point of no return, as major networks are now quietly preparing for the ultimate financial fallout. Legal departments inside massive television networks are reportedly drafting contingency plans to replace Steve on his long-running game show contracts if the public backlash intensifies any further. The reality of modern entertainment is that no public figure is too big to be replaced when their personal life begins to actively damage the corporate bottom line. The frantic meetings happening behind closed doors are no longer about saving Steve's reputation, but rather about containing the massive financial liabilities that threaten to wipe out decades of corporate investments. Independent legal analysts are pointing out that the hypothetical fallout from this stage assault could include formal police investigations, and civil lawsuits that will force both parties into a public courtroom. If Katt Williams decides to press formal charges for the physical altercation, Steve's legal team will be completely stripped of their ability to suppress the evidence under private non-disclosure agreements. A public trial would mean that every single piece of security footage, every eyewitness testimony, and every underlying reason for the fight would become a matter of public record. This is the absolute worst-case scenario for Marjorie, who has spent her entire life ensuring that her personal history and family dynamics remain completely hidden behind a wall of expensive attorneys. The public backlash has completely spilled over from social media comment sections into the physical world, with major retail brands reportedly reconsidering their distribution deals with Lori Harvey's fashion and beauty lines. Corporate sponsors are deeply risk-averse, and they cannot afford to have their consumer products associated with a family currently wrapped in allegations of high-level deception, historical federal surveillance, and public violence. The elite high society circles that once welcomed Marjorie to the front rows of international fashion weeks are suddenly distancing themselves to protect their own institutional brands. The isolation of the Harvey empire is happening at a terrifying speed, proving that Hollywood loyalty only lasts as long as your public image remains profitable. Rumors of upcoming government audits regarding the financial structures of the family's various charitable foundations are adding fuel to an already catastrophic fire. Independent investigative journalists are digging into the tax filings and donation allocations of the Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation, looking for any inconsistencies that might link back to their lavish personal spending habits. When a high-profile family becomes the center of a massive public scandal, it naturally draws the attention of regulatory agencies that are more than happy to launch deep financial probes. If these hypothetical probes uncover any misuse of charitable funds to finance their extravagant lifestyle, the consequences will move far beyond a simple media controversy and slide straight into federal territory. The internal crisis within the Harvey household has reportedly created a massive divide between Steve's biological children and his stepchildren, who are all scrambling to protect their individual futures. Sources claim that Steve's older children feel completely vindicated by Katt's public exposure of the family's internal dynamics, having allegedly spent years being pushed into the background of the corporate brand. The narrative suggests that the tension inside the mansion has become completely unbearable, with Steve caught in the middle of a desperate tug-of-war between his loyalty to Marjorie and his sudden realization that his entire life's work is being destroyed to protect her secrets. The flawless blended family image that was sold to millions of viewers has officially collapsed into a chaotic battle for financial survival. Public interest in the story has reached such an intense peak that major streaming platforms are reportedly bidding on independent documentary projects that promise to expose the complete, unedited history of Marjorie's rise to power. These upcoming projects are set to feature rare archival footage from the 1990s federal drug trials involving her previous husbands, alongside exclusive interviews with former security guards who witnessed the inner workings of the Harvey estates. The corporate media machine can no longer protect the family, because the sheer volume of public demand for the truth has made the story too lucrative for independent producers to ignore. Every single attempt by the Harvey legal team to block these productions is only serving to generate more free publicity and curiosity around the hidden truths. The long-term consequences for Steve's professional legacy are looking incredibly bleak as industry insiders begin to view him as a liability rather than an asset. For 40 years, Steve was the ultimate survivor in the entertainment business, transitioning from stand-up comedy to radio, daytime talk shows, global pageants, and best-selling books. But this single violent outburst against a peer who chose to speak the truth has permanently stained that record of achievement. Future generations will no longer look at him as the wise, self-made mentor who gave actionable advice on how to succeed against all odds, but rather as a cautionary tale of what happens when you build a multi-million-dollar brand on top of a foundation of corporate secrets. The tactical operations designed by Marjorie to cancel Katt Williams have completely backfired, resulting in a massive surge of public support for the independent comedian instead. Katt's ticket sales have reportedly broken records across the country, with fans traveling long distances just to hear him deliver more unfiltered commentary on the true nature of Hollywood elitism. The public has chosen their side in this war, and they are overwhelmingly standing behind the man who refuses to be bought, silenced, or intimidated by corporate power structures. By trying to force network executives to choose between Steve's corporate influence and Katt's raw popularity, the Harveys accidentally prove just how out of touch they are with the modern digital audience. As the financial pressure mounts and the threat of corporate cancellation becomes a reality, industry insiders are predicting a series of sudden, forced retirements within the Harvey camp. We could see Steve quietly stepping down from his major television hosting roles under the guise of wanting to focus on his health or spend more time with his grandchildren. This classic Hollywood exit strategy is the standard method used by massive entertainment corporations to remove a controversial figure without causing a sudden drop in network stock prices. But the public is far too intelligent to fall for the standard public relations script anymore, and everyone will know exactly why the legendary game show host was forced to walk away from the spotlight. The absolute breakdown of this celebrity dynasty is serving as a massive wake-up call for the entire entertainment industry, exposing the extreme lengths to which high society figures will go to protect their manufactured images. The era of the untouchable Hollywood star, who can manipulate the public through controlled interviews and aggressive legal threats, is officially coming to an end. The rise of independent digital platforms and fearless commentary channels has given the audience the power to demand true accountability from the people they support with their hard-earned money. Steve Harvey's public unraveling is simply the latest chapter in a much larger cultural movement that is systematically tearing down the golden curtains of celebrity culture. The narrative is now moving toward its absolute final conclusion, where the ultimate truth will be determined not by public relations statements, but by financial balances and legal rulings. The Harvey empire is currently facing a total systemic failure, from which there is no realistic path to recovery. Every single move they make to fix the damage only seems to open a new line of questioning regarding their past choices, their current relationships, and the true nature of their corporate wealth. The spectacular rise of America's favorite relationship guru has officially set the stage for the most dramatic, highly publicized corporate collapse in the history of modern pop culture. Are we truly witnessing the final desperate days of the Harvey family empire? Or do you think Steve and Marjorie have one last corporate trick up their sleeve to silence the truth? How do you feel about the shocking revelation that the ultimate relationship guru was allegedly living a life full of deep personal secrets and hidden household text logs? Do you believe Katt Williams will continue to pull back the layers on Hollywood's most powerful elites? Or will the corporate system eventually find a way to slow him down? Drop all your thoughts and theories in the comments section below. Make sure to hit that like button to keep this investigation moving forward, and subscribe right now so you never miss a single second of these massive, history-making breaking truths. This entire situation has officially proven that no matter how many millions of dollars you spend trying to craft the perfect public image, the truth always finds a way to break through the cracks. Steve Harvey thought his corporate power could protect his household secrets forever, but a single confrontation with Katt Williams completely shattered that illusion in front of the entire world. Now the ultimate question rests entirely with you, the audience who holds the real power in the modern digital landscape. Do you believe that Steve was genuinely trying to defend his family's honor on that stage? Or was that violent outburst the reaction of a man who knows his entire empire is built on a foundation of absolute lies? Is Marjorie Harvey truly the mastermind pulling the strings behind this entire Hollywood operation? Or is she just another victim of sensational industry gossip? And what about Katt Williams? Will he continue his fearless mission to expose the darkest corners of the entertainment industry? Or will the corporate elites finally find a way to silence him for good? We want to hear your absolute rawest thoughts, theories, and perspectives on this historic celebrity meltdown. So make sure to drop your comments right down below. Don't forget to hit that like button to support independent investigative breakdowns, share this video with everyone you know, and subscribe to the channel right now so you never miss out on the absolute biggest breaking truths in pop culture.